The number one team in the country is pulling up to Wisconsin this weekend. Ohio State and their 10-game win streak since the start of last year's college football playoff will be on the line in a game that's airing on CBS this Saturday. The Badgers looking to spoil the Buckeyes' perfect season and snap their 4-game losing streak in the process. Tons of noise coming out of Madison surrounding Luke Fickell and what his future might be. Currently, right now in the present, he is 0-8 against AP-ranked programs. This has been a one-sided competition of late. Ohio State winning their past 10 meetings with the last loss coming 15 years ago back in 2010. That sets the scene as we get ready for Saturday in Wisconsin, a Saturday CBS 3:30 game. And to help us dive even deeper into it, we bring in Dave Biddle, who covers Ohio State for 24/7 Sports, and Nick Olson, also with 24/7 and covering Wisconsin. I looked at the forecast and I saw cloudy, rainy weather for Saturday in Madison, and I just feel like that is kind of the type of recipe that could be trouble for a team that's looking to continue their success for Ohio State. And Dave, how much concern should there be with weather maybe keeping the game close and having to deal with that?
Yeah, it could be the great equalizer when you look at this matchup because Ohio State, they can run the ball pretty well, but they definitely throw the ball better. They've had some issues here and there running the football, and their best running back, true freshman Bo Jackson, has a gimpy ankle. I think he'll play on Saturday. They do have an off week the next week, and they've been giving carries to C.J. Donaldson and James Peoples as well, so you might see more of those guys. But, yeah, this will be the first time if the forecast does hold up. The Buckeyes have not played in poor weather yet. Julian Sand has not had to throw the ball in wet weather yet. So it'll be very interesting to see how they combat that. And you have to feel like Wisconsin, they're going to come in with nothing to lose. Luke Fickell, obviously a former Buckeye player, coach, even was an interim head coach for a year here in Columbus. So, yeah, this could be the great equalizer if the weather forecast holds up, especially with Ohio State being more of a passing team than a running team.
Wisconsin averages 15.5 points per game, which is their 6th fewest points per game. Nick, how do you think about that with the weather and everything?
Yeah, but guys, I think it's a really interesting point. Unfortunately for Wisconsin, they've also struggled to run the ball. I know Ohio State has done it well. He just, mentioned obviously the potential injury with Bo Jackson. But in these types of games, you'd look for a general Wisconsin team to try to make it a little bit more physical, low scoring on the ground. But the part is they have struggled at that point in the game. So I do think, kind of trying to grind it out and keep it low scoring has been something that was talked about. Try to get to late third, early fourth quarter, kind of like how the Badgers handled this game in 2023. Now, I think this Ohio State team is certainly probably better than that and more talented, a lot of youth. But I like that aspect. I think it maybe helps from getting it maybe like a 50-some scoring game, as Ohio State certainly can do. But in terms of how the Badgers would score points, still probably an uphill battle for those guys.
Yeah, scoring has been tough for Wisconsin lately. They're just coming off of their first home shutout loss since 1980 last Saturday. With that in mind, Nick, you kind of alluded to scoring being tough. How important is it for just the Badgers to get on the board early and get some sort of positive momentum?
Yeah, Zach, it's probably the most important thing for Wisconsin. Even head coach Luke Fickell would say that this group, especially with some of the injuries at quarterback that they have had, they're just not really built to play from behind. And as we know, and we'll continue to get into with this segment, Ohio State's defense is elite. It's the best in the country and probably the best that I have seen really in several seasons. So I think a big talking point this week will actually end up being who does get that start at QB for Wisconsin, right? We haven't seen Billy Edwards Jr. for a while. Hunter Simmons struggled against Iowa. I wouldn't be shocked to see a guy like Danny O'Neal. But like you said, Zach, those things are a little bit more scripted early. If Wisconsin can just do something to not just get on the board, but really instill a little bit of momentum in a group that is obviously really struggling and just looking for something to grasp onto against an elite opponent like Ohio State, I think that would make sure that the fans are involved. Like you said, potentially crummy weather. They're going to need kind of every extra aspect that they can. And I do think it's possible as we get into it a little bit further. It's not going to be easy when that Ohio State defense with Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs, they get comfortable. So for Badgers' sake, if they can get one in the first quarter, that would be huge in Madison.
Yeah, Dave, you look at this game on paper and you see a Wisconsin team that's been struggling to score all throughout the game, no matter what part of the game it is, and you see Ohio State and how well they've been running and looking ahead in the future, and you see, wow, there's no other ranked team that they're scheduled to play as it stands right now in the regular season. So with that in mind, and even maybe the recent struggles against Michigan in mind, how does Ryan Day make sure he keeps this team focused and not looking ahead to the Big Ten title game or the Michigan game or the playoffs?
I think it's easy not to look ahead to the Big Ten championship game or the college football playoff. I don't know if it's going to be easy for them not to look ahead to Michigan. I mean, that is a game that they've had circled, obviously, in Sharpie all year. So I think it's going to be different. They're already looking ahead to Michigan, I'm sure, but they have to also mitigate that they can't overlook their opponents. And you would have thought Penn State's a game you're not going to overlook. Now that could be a game that they're kind of overlooking. Again, Wisconsin is going to be very dangerous. They gave Michigan a pretty good game a couple weeks ago, and they're going to be playing with nothing to lose. I know what happened last week, but I've seen Ohio State go to Madison many times and struggle. They lost one game total in 2010. That was at Madison. They lost two games total back in 2003. One was at Madison, Camp Randall Stadium. So, yeah, I think the Buckeyes, they're not looking ahead to the postseason by any means, but I am sure they're looking ahead to Michigan because they know, despite winning the national championship last year, the second biggest topic of conversation was they lost their fourth straight game to Michigan. So they know they have to break that streak this year. But so it's going to be pretty impossible not to look ahead to the Michigan game, but that's how you can slip up, especially in a game like this at Wisconsin where they're going to be pulling out all the stops, I'm sure, especially if it's a bad weather game.
Yeah, and Nick, a game that I'm sure Luke Fickell surely hopes that he can get for his job security's sake, because you look at that seat and you have to figure it's pretty hot right now for him. What are you hearing about his future with the program?
Yeah, Zach, it's been an unfortunate talking point, obviously, around the country, and even kind of buzzing with some of the fan base and some of the recent chants at games. Zach, what I would say is, obviously, and that record is shown on the screen, it's something that is not really expected in Wisconsin, obviously, with a losing record. Now, I think he has had some decisions that he wishes he could have back. For example, Phil Longo as OC. That's something that really set this program back a little bit. And that was not just on Longo or Fickell or anything, but it just didn't work, right? And that essentially took away basically a year and a half of success. And when you're looking at things like that, at this point in the season, Fickell and the program are just looking to grab onto some momentum that can not only potentially push them forward, but certainly quell a lot of that chatter, right? Often you would look for maybe an easier game right now, but I think this is the type of game needed, quite frankly, Zach, because if they're able to play super, super competitive against Oregon next week or potentially knock off the top-ranked Buckeyes, I think that would ease things for a little bit. But otherwise, like you said, it's been a huge talking point. I just think the losing record, especially against teams that you usually beat, like Iowa, like Minnesota, obviously last year, they got them in 2023, and just the way that they've struggled against Power 4, it's definitely been tough. It's a reason that it's been a point of discussion. I believe from what I have heard that there's still a little bit of time to change some of those things, but it has to start now with a huge challenge ahead on Saturday.
Yeah, an under 500 record certainly is not going to do it. Let's get to the nitty-gritty of it all now. Dave, I'll ask you first. Who wins? What's the final score?
Yeah, Zach, I'm not breaking news here. I do think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I have Ohio State pulling away in the second half. I think it could be a good game in the first half. I just don't see Wisconsin being able to consistently move the ball against this Ohio State defense. And so I have this one, Ohio State 35, Wisconsin 7. I do think the Badgers are going to get on the board early in the game. As you guys were talking about earlier, that is going to be key for Wisconsin. Ohio State's giving up some points early, some drives early, and then this defense locks in. Matt Patricia's doing a great job with this defense, despite the fact they lost 8 draft picks off this defense. So I have Ohio State pulling away in the second half, 35-7.
Yeah, Dave, I think that's very fair. I've actually got a similar score, my friend. I do have Ohio State taking this one. I won't be shocked at all if Wisconsin does get that early score as well. But like I mentioned earlier, the Buckeyes have maybe the best defense that we've seen in 4 to 5 seasons nationally. I don't see the Badgers being able to kind of consistently get that offense going. I could see Ohio State having the score a little bit lower, maybe not even showing everything that they've got. But I'm thinking like a 31-10 type of game in Madison in favor of OSU.
Saturday, 3:30 on CBS. Dave Biddle and Nick Osen. And Nick, if you see producer Tully there in person in Madison, make sure you take a picture with it and send it to us because we will need that documentation. Absolutely. Enjoy the game on Saturday. And also on Saturday, you know who will be there? Oh, the college football pregame show. They're hitting the road. Badger Bash at Union South, with some special guests there as well. So that is Saturday, 10 a.m. to catch Emily Proud and the gang there in person. And then that will lead up to the game on CBS, streaming on Paramount Plus. That's 3:30 Eastern. You hear the music, you know the teams. Get ready for a packed weekend.